Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Geoff Grammer with the Albuquerque Journal and abqjournal.com/sports to be a little more specific. You're listening to episode 28 now of the Talking Grammar podcast. We got a fun one today. We got a little something different in these crazy times for everybody. Everything's a little bit different lately. So what we did today was obviously not a lot of sports going on the field or on the court, in the gym, in the arena. So what we just like all sports fans everywhere, the big topic this past week was The Last Dance, the 10-part documentary series on ESPN that features the 97-98 Chicago Bulls championship series. I did reach out to former Lobo, Luc Longley, who was the starting center on that team. He politely declined, spending some time with his family back in Australia, and he did not want to be interviewed, at least ahead of the documentary. I will give it another try as this documentary series plays out over the next 5 weeks. I also reached out to former Aggie Randy Brown. He did not get back with me ahead of it. Again, I will try again to get Randy Brown as well. The fact that there was a former New Mexico State Aggie and a former UNM Lobo on what is arguably one of the greatest NBA teams of all time, that 97-98 Chicago Bulls team, is remarkable in itself. There certainly haven't been a whole lot of NBA players out of New Mexico or out of New Mexico State since the 90s, so the fact that two of them were on one of the greatest teams is really remarkable in a lot of ways, and it's certainly been written about plenty through the years in the Journal and around New Mexico. But this celebration of the 97-98 Bulls is kind of highlighting it again. Obviously, they're not the focus of this documentary series, but it would have been nice to talk to either one of them. What I got for you today on this podcast, though, and is kind of a unique situation as well. Former New Mexico State Aggie basketball player Brandon Mason, who is now a UNM Lobo assistant coach and was a high school junior in Chicago, just killing it in the high school ranks in Chicago during that 97-98 season. And I talked to him a little bit. He's the biggest Chicago Bulls fan I know. Makes his sons dress up in Chicago Bulls jerseys during the documentary when it aired on Sunday night, and will for the next 5 weeks as well. And I talked to him a little bit about what it was like growing up in Chicago during that Chicago Bulls era, what he thought of the documentary series. We had a little fun with what so many people are trying out for the first time now, which is the Zoom video conferencing. So there's also a video that accompanies this podcast, and you can get that through the Albuquerque Journal's website, and I think we'll upload it onto YouTube as well. But anyway, the point is he was on Zoom. He walked around his house. He wearing a Chicago Bulls uniform during the interview. Even showed off his 20 plus or however many pairs of Air Jordans that he's collected through the years. Just a big time Bulls fan. Talked to him a little bit about The Last Dance, about what playing in Chicago during that era meant to him, and a little bit about Lobo recruiting, a little bit about some of that stuff, but primarily The Last Dance, the documentary, and what being a Bulls fan, especially a high school basketball player who started getting recruited by colleges at that time, what it was like, and some of the NBA players he went against during that time. So very much appreciate Brandon Mason for being cooperative in this and playing along with us for the video and for this podcast, as well as an article that's going to go into the Albuquerque Journal, I believe in Wednesday's edition, the print edition on Wednesday. And that's a good opportunity now to remind you that there's been a lot of fantastic work going into the Albuquerque Journal and by local newspapers all around New Mexico during this crazy time, during this coronavirus pandemic. So I want to remind you that subscribing to local journalism is important. It matters. And times like this, I couldn't be prouder to be a part of local journalism because of some of the work my colleagues at the Journal have done. And there's been great work done around the state of New Mexico. Please, if you can, subscribe to the Albuquerque Journal, www.abqjournal.com/subscribe. That'll take you right to our subscription page where you can sign up for a variety of options. You can get the digital version just online, the e-edition, just subscribe to the Sunday and get the digital version, or you could get the full 7-day-a-week option. Local journalism matters. I don't say that just because I'm a part of the journalism field and it's my job. It's because I believe it matters. And I think times like this show it. So be very much appreciated if you did support local journalism. Hopefully the Albuquerque Journal. Now that one's a little self-serving because that's where I work. But any support of local journalism would be greatly appreciated at this time. It also provides opportunities like this for sports fans trying to get away from all that coronavirus talk and have a little bit of escape at a time when, all you see on the news is about stuff that you can't really control, that we don't have a whole lot of control over right now. Maybe this gives you a little bit of escape, and that's supporting local journalism as well. So back to the topic at hand, Brandon Mason, Lobo basketball assistant coach, talking about The Last Dance. Here we go, episode 28 of the Talking Grammer podcast. We got Brandon Mason here. We're checking in on what the Chicago kid thought of The Last Dance last night. Actually, I got to tell you, this is the first Zoom thing I've done. This whole time, I haven't had to do any Zoom interviews, no Zoom meetings. How many of these have you done?
Man, I've probably done over 5 a week. I've been doing them daily. Academics, players, recruiting, everything.
Have you been messing with this, with these backgrounds? Tell me which one you think I should do here. I got a couple, and then we'll get going here. I got.
You got this.
Oh wait, okay. No, it's not supposed to do my face.
No, you did it the other way around.
Yeah, I did it the wrong way. Hold on.
I like that. So you have the ones that I have probably.
Yeah, I do, but I have some of my own pictures here too. There we go. All right. So can you see the ramp now?
I can see it. I was just there a little while ago.
You were just there. So I got that. So I got an Isotopes Park.
I like it.
Got my Breaking Bad picture over on Wantabo. This one's probably the best.
I like that one.
I think where I work.
That's the one you should go with.
It's where you work. It's where I work. Now I got a little bit of a white background issue here with this white thing on my hat, but I could do it. It's probably worse this way with the T. On the T. All right.
You should have a Lobo hat.
I should get a without the white. All right, man. So let's go with this. Let's talk, man. We are. Let's see. I imagine for about 2-3 weeks we're like just giddy, going crazy that The Last Dance was coming up. And
super excited.
I bet you were. How sick was your family? Was that house of hearing about The Last Dance coming up?
They were tired of it. I mean, and on top of it, the kids had to find their Chicago Bulls jerseys that their granddad sent them years ago. So they're like looking through it. It's not like they just had it in the closet hanging up either. So they got tired of me talking about it. But they got to learn the history of the Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan, where I'm from, and all that kind of stuff. So this was a good start.
Well, for those that don't know, you're not just a Chicago Bulls fan. You were coming into your own as a basketball player. Tell us what grade and what high school you were at. The Last Dance, obviously there were 6 championships. I know they shouldn't have beat the Portland Trail Blazers, but we can get into that later.
Don't do that.
You were what grade, what high school, the year of the 97-98 season, which was the season that The Last Dance 10-part documentary follows. What grade and how good of a player were you?
Well, I was a junior in high school. I was at Morgan Park, I was in the Red South. Back then, they had the Red South, the Red West. They were in different divisions as opposed to like 4A, 5A, things like that. So, it was one of the toughest conferences I would say in the country. There were multiple NBA players like Bobby Simmons, Quentin Richardson, guys like that. And my junior year was my best year of basketball, actually. So, I mean, it was a fun year, fun times.
How often did you go against somebody in high school that ended up in the NBA, where you personally were going against them?
I wouldn't say like every night. I'd say like maybe once a month or something like that. I mean, during Christmas, I played against Dwayne Wade in the Christmas Lincoln Way tournament. We lost the championship to him. In the playoffs, we lost to Quentin Richardson the next month. And then before that, we played against Bobby Simmons and Simeon, who was in our conference. We played against Julian, who had a bunch of pros, where Sean Dockery played for Duke. They have Lance Williams. They had a bunch of guys, man. So like every night to like every week, it was always some major competition going on.
What would you say in terms of kind of where you stood with them? Obviously, you were a Division I player, and in the city of Chicago, you were pretty darn good. Those guys are, I mean, Dwayne Wade's next level good. Quentin Richardson, pretty darn good himself. So how close were you to them in high school?
Well, I played on multiple AAU teams with guys like that. Not Dwayne Wade. I didn't know him personally like that. But guys like Quentin Richardson and Bobby Simmons, like I had a personal relationship. Quentin Richardson, I played on a team with him. I was kind of like the younger guy, like the year behind, that kind of sat on the bench and clapped for those guys.
Yeah.
Quentin Richardson, Dennis Gates, that's the head coach at Cleveland State right now. They had another guy named Cordell Henry. It was like a large group of guys that played for the Illinois Warriors. And at that time, Larry Butler had a really good thing going. And then the next year was when the Mac Irvin fire. I got a chance to play with those guys, and it was just on from there.
All right. Anybody in Chicago allowed not to be a Bulls fan at that time?
You know what? I used to argue with my brother every day about this. I had a brother, one of my brothers, Mario Brown, and he was the biggest Bad Boys fans because of Isaiah Thomas, and he was from Chicago. And he was like,
right.
"See, best," and like we would argue, like to this day, like I fight my brother over that.
You guys, obviously he came at a time when you were probably just getting into basketball big time, so that influenced you, I'm sure. Tell us a little bit about that 97-98 season, what it was like in Chicago. It was the last dance. Did you know that was going to be it? I mean, was everybody pretty well aware that was the last go-around for the Bulls?
Unfortunately, I mean, people saw it coming. You saw the writing on the wall, but nobody would believe it. You know what I'm saying? Like, we didn't actually think it would end. This is just my experience. This is my opinion. I'm sure everybody has their own. But at the end of the day, I'm like, man, we still winning. Michael Jordan's the greatest. Why would we mess this up? You know,
there's no way they would break that up.
There's no way. And then you think about, now the older you get, you think about the business side of it. You think about not let Scottie walk away and not get anything for him. You hear both sides of everything. And Scottie was upset that he wasn't even the second highest paid on the team. I think Tony Kukoc was. So there was more internal stuff that probably coming out that hasn't come out yet. But, I mean, I'm sure that they just had so much turmoil going on that it was just hard to cope with.
It was crazy seeing those numbers last night when they showed the documentary. Scottie was actually number 6 on the team. He was behind Ron Harper, Tony Kukoc, Michael, obviously. Yes. Luc Longley, the former Lobo, was up there, and there was one other, I'm forgetting who, but he was number 6.
Rodman?
It might have been Rodman that last year. And he was number 6 on the team that year and like 126 in the league. And you think about a guy who made the top 50 team when they had their 50th anniversary, of the NBA. Like it's insane.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate. He did sign the contract, and everybody's like, man, he shouldn't have signed the contract. But it's tough. He earned the money. He had a great career. He's one of the best of all time. I've always thought that, just like Michael Jordan said yesterday, it was awesome to hear him say, like, man, I needed Scottie, man. He was the best number 2. Like, it was a team thing. Mike wasn't talking like a me guy. He was talking like a us guy. And that's just huge for kids today to hear the greatest player ever not talking about like, this was my show, this was my deal. He was talking about us. He was talking about how much he needed Scottie. That was great. That was great to hear.
And Scottie's going to go down in history as one of, if not the best number 2 ever. And some people think that is somehow a knock. It's not at all.
No, that's not a knock at all. I mean, you're especially being a number 2 to the greatest ever, to the GOAT. You know what I'm saying? It's not like he was the number 2 to just a random all-star or just another player. Because who knows, at the end of the day, I think Mike left the Bulls to go play baseball. And, Scottie and Tony, like, he still led them to the playoffs and still had a good season without Mike. And, I mean, that says a lot about Scottie.
All right, who were you? Were you Michael or were you Scottie when you were pretending to be somebody on that team?
I wore
you Luc Longley?
You know what? I wasn't Luc Longley until I got to New Mexico.
There you go.
And I mean, there's stories I hear about the kind of guy he was. It's like, man, it's just awesome that I always was like, man, who is this big guy? Where did they find him? New Mexico, this. They talked about it a lot, and I just loved hearing about it. Yeah. New Mexico this, New Mexico that. And hearing that in Chicago was awesome. But I was more of a Michael Jordan guy. I wore all my Jordans all the time. I wanted to be Mike. I wasn't good enough, but at least in my mind, I wanted to be like him,
All right. I want to get back, and after one question, I'm going to get back to you wanting to be like Mike, and I want to ask you how many shoes you have. But before I do that, the reality is, like, we're in New Mexico. You are a Lobo right now, a Lobo assistant coach right now, and you played for the Aggies. You're an Aggie. The idea that arguably the greatest dynasty in history, and the one that this dynasty or that this documentary is about, the 97-98 Bulls, had not only one Lobo in the NBA on that team as a starter, but had an Aggie on that team in Randy Brown. Like that doesn't happen, man. That doesn't happen very often, as you know, in these two programs. And for both of them to be on that team, that speaks pretty highly of what was going on with Lobo and Aggie basketball at that time.
It does, 100%. But you know what I guarantee that probably won't make the documentary is the arguments between those two on the bus. Like just talking about the Lobo Aggie matchups and who was better and who's this and who's that. Like that's what we want to hear. You know, but I guarantee that might not make the cut. But that's I could only imagine just the riff and the jokes and the different things that they said back and forth to each other. I mean, I bet you, I'm pretty sure they had a lot of fun with that.
Well, I was gonna say you're in a position now where you're on both sides of it a little bit, and so you know people from the Lobo side that want to talk some trash to you as the Aggie Brandon Mason, and you know plenty of Aggies that want to talk trash to you now as the Lobo Brandon Mason. So I imagine those two guys went at it pretty good.
Oh no, for sure. I mean, guys that I've been around. I mean, from Kendall Williams, Alex Kirk, J.R. Giddens, like Darius Gary, like all those guys are like they're my friends. But at the end of the day, they still look at me as an Aggie. They be like, "Oh, you cool enough?" But they try to treat me like an Aggie, of course. And I mean, hey, at the end of the day, I did play a lot. I love them. I love this. I love New Mexico in general, so it's all good.
And what number were you?
Come on, man, 23, man.
Yeah, Mr. New Mexico also played for, was it the Slam?
The Thunderbirds.
Ooh, see, I messed up.
The Slam was before the Thunderbirds. The Slam.
Can't get those wrong.
You can't. That's two different leagues.
And you also coached up at Highland, so yeah, you've been pretty much all over this state.
Trying to. I mean, I really believe that I'm New Mexican. I've been in New Mexico longer than Chicago, so my ID says New Mexico. I've been in every part from Las Vegas, New Mexico to Las Cruces, New Mexico, and, you know, just
everywhere.
Yeah.
And you're an honorary Alamogordo. You lived with two of my good friends, obviously, from high school, for those that don't know, but you're an honorary Alamogordoan as well.
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of ties and driving to Alamogordo and then to keep going all the way to Ruidoso. So at the end of the day, that's my neck of the woods right there. Those Big Tim and Big Ryan are great guys. All
right. Well, before you wanted to be an Alamogordoan, because everybody wants to be from there, you wanted to be like Mike. So how much do you still want to be like Mike, and how many Michael Jordan, like what's your shoe collection like? You got a collection?
Let me cut this light on. Hold on. Here we go. From probably all the numbers. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, we got them.
So that's like 1, 2. Those are all the 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8. Here's all the 9s. There's all the 10s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 11 11s. Then I got 12s, 13s, 14, all the way to the end. That's how much I love money.
That's ridiculous, man.
And I'm going to save them for my kids. They can't wait till they reach size 13 so they can wear them as well.
They can fit in there. That's awesome. What do you expect to see the rest of this documentary? Obviously, there's going to be, from everything I hear, that it's not entirely just a puff piece. It's going to make people love the Bulls. Some of it's going to be real. It's going to be, Jordan himself said he was a little worried that it wasn't going to be all that flattering for him. I think others who've already seen it have kind of said, no, it just shows him as a competitor. What do you expect? Are you at all worried that any part of this is going to make you not like them as much?
No, not at all. I mean, at the end of the day, one thing that happened with Kobe Bryant, everybody know Kobe wanted to be like Mike, basically, right? But everybody got to see his attitude a little different because social media came out. There was more publication about Kobe and his attitude and different things, and Mike's was downplayed. And all you're going to see is that the similarities between the two in practices and the things he said and probably the fights he had with the players and just the sheer wanting to win out of Mike is probably just going to come out and just probably just a little more attitude and stuff. But at the end of the day, man, it's a high level. He was the greatest, and what he did what he had to do to win and be the greatest.
All right. So how many reminders you have set? You have reminders set on your television already for every time it's on?
No, I don't even need one.
You know when it's coming, right? Is it every Sunday or is it?
It's every Sunday.
All right. So every Sunday they're going to show 2 episodes, right? Is that how it works?
Yeah. It is. I was trying to find a way to get all 10 of them already.
I'll bet
making calls and trying to watch it all the way through.
All right, and so the family, obviously, they like the Bulls too. Probably not as much as you, but like they're into this too.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they don't have a choice. There wasn't like a vote or any kind of like conversation about this. I told them that they had to like the Bulls, and like
you may not have any say about anything else, but this one they let you have.
I don't have a say in anything, except for that.
When it came to this,
the Bulls and the Bears, and I hate the Bears right now. We're struggling. I get it, but I got to ride for my Chicago teams, and the Cubs and the Sox is whoever's doing good. That's who I'm rocking with at the time.
All right, man. Well, let's sign off on this. There are going to be some Lobo fans listening to this, maybe watching this. And I know you can't talk about specifics, but why don't you give them a little meat on the bone to chew on a little bit about recruiting? Recruiting going good for the Lobos right now?
Yeah. Actually, I think we're doing a heck of a job. And I think one thing that we're doing a good job of, it's not just like I'm not just recruiting on my own or doing anything like that. We have all hands on deck. Dan McHale is doing a great job with his East Coast connections. Coach Robinson is doing a great job with his connections. Paul is making calls, and he's doing like everything. You know what I'm saying? So like we're all coming together, and we're putting our minds together and trying to get the best fit possible to fit us, style of play, culture, everything that we're trying to do here, and do some really good things. And so we're on 2020 and 2021 and trying to knock it out heavy right now.
5-star calls up Brandon Mason right now and says, hey, I want to play for the Lobos because, look, I want to be like LeBron because he's the best ever. What does Brandon Mason tell that guy?
I'm going to call you right back.
And he had never heard of Michael Jordan.
No, trust me. I've talked to some big-time recruits, and that has been the exact conversation that we've had, on the phone about the greatest and different things like that. And that happens a lot, trust me.
I mean, some of them said Kobe. Some of them said LeBron, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, and the LeBron argument, I get it. Like, I think Kobe's the second best. I think LeBron's following up. Like, I get it.
And Clyde Drexler is the best? Who do you think's the best? Just to be clear, Clyde, right? Portland?
No, come on. Don't do me like that. I didn't say that. Clyde was great.
For the record, I don't really think Clyde's in the conversation. I'm a Portland fan. Clyde was great, but he's not in that, he's not on the Mount Rushmore. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, Mount Rushmore. I mean, that's some high level stuff, but I think Magic is somewhere around there.
Yeah, no, I got you. And Kareem. The list goes on and on. And that's a debate for another podcast. But this is Michael time. This is the Bulls time. Everyone seems pretty excited about it, and you seem pretty excited about it. So I'm glad you did this, man. I appreciate it. And good luck with the rest of the documentary, but good luck with the rest of recruiting too, man.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Bye-bye.